Welcome back. In earlier lecture, we installed Docker on a Ubuntu machine. Now we are going to understand what has actually happened once the installation is done and also the architecture of Docker. Suppose if this is my Ubuntu machine, once I installed a Docker, there is a process called as Docker daemon which will be running in the background. As the name says, it is a daemon process. Actually, once we installed Docker, we say that Docker engine is installed. So what are the various components of Docker engine? Docker daemon is part of Docker engine, and also there is a REST API which is part of Docker engine. Then we have also installed something called as Docker CLI on the same machine. CLI stands for command line interface. So we can interact to Docker using this particular CLI. Actually, once we install Docker engine, Docker CLI also is installed on the machine. For clarity, what I will do is assume that I have another machine, and in this machine I have my applications. Suppose I have some Python applications or Java applications. All the application binaries are present on this machine. And from this machine, I want to communicate with Docker and I want to run containers. So this machine is a client to Docker machine. So on client machines, we need to install the Docker CLI. From command line interface, whenever I fire any command, it will internally make REST API call and talk to this API. And this API will internally talk to daemon, and daemon will actually be responsible for starting the containers, stopping the containers, or managing everything. Okay. Now, I have a simple requirement. What I want to do is, I want to start a server, nginx server, a web server basically, in a container on this machine. So basically, whenever I say nginx has to run inside a container, you might ask me, hey, what about the files required for running nginx? What about its dependencies? So there might be some application specific files and the dependencies, right? So what we need is we need something called as a image which contains the file system, which contains all the nginx related files, its dependencies, etc. in an image. Once we have this image, by using these files, by using this image, we can launch a container. How to create your own image? We'll clearly have a discussion next. But understand that to start a container, you need a image. If you are from object oriented background, we can analyze it. We can actually compare it with a class and an object. See, if you want to create an object, what you need? You need a class definition, right? Once you have a class definition, you can create any number of objects of that particular class. Similarly, to start containers, you need a container image. The image will define what all files will be part of that containers file system. Okay. Now, how to create image, we will see later. But for such standard applications like nginx or RabbitMQ or MySQL database, there are some standard images which are hosted in a Docker repository called as Docker Hub. What is Docker Hub? Docker Hub is a repository of Docker images. Okay, where is it located? I can go to Docker Hub by just going to hub.docker.com. Okay, now if I go to hub.docker.com, I can search for any repositories. For example, nginx. If I search, it will show me, okay, this is one image, Docker official image. There are a lot of images for nginx, but I'll take the first official image. And if I click on this, it will show me what all the commands I can use, how to use this image, all this documentation will be present. Okay. Now, what I can do is simply, uh, whenever I want to run, whenever I want to actually download a image from Docker Hub, I can use a command called as docker pull. Pull is a command, nginx. See, what it will do is it will check if this image with this name is already present in the Docker engine. If it is not present, it is automatically downloading from this repository docker.io/library from the Docker Hub actually. Okay, and it will be present. Now, actually, what I fired a command on CLI. Assume that CLI is on different machine. Whenever I issued a pull command, whenever I issued, it will make a REST API call. The CLI will make a REST API call. This REST API server will internally ask Docker daemon to actually pull the image from Docker Hub, and it will pull it. Now, if I want to see the pulled images, Docker images is a command. So already I have pulled hello world image and nginx image. Suppose if I want MySQL, what I can do is I can pull MySQL, or without pulling, if I want to run instance of container, I can also run by using docker run command. So already I have downloaded or pulled nginx. Let me run this nginx um, container. So docker run nginx. Okay, see, already um, image is there locally. So this is the output of running nginx. The process is running. I didn't get my terminal back because this process is running in the foreground. Now I'll stop it by pressing Ctrl C. See, it exited. Okay. So I started a container and also I exited the container. Fine. Now if I say docker ps, it will show me all the running processes. Oh, there is no docker process. But if I execute docker ps dash a, it will show all the uh, docker processes or docker containers which were stopped as well. See, nginx, for this nginx image, one container with this container id was created 51 seconds back and it exited 29 seconds back. And by default, every container will have a container id, a unique container id, and also a name. We can give our own name. If we don't give a name to container, a new random name will be allocated. So earlier, don't worry, I have ran this hello world 2 times. So it shows that the containers for hello world exited as well. Now, Docker ps-a will list all the processes, right? So the containers have been created and then they have been terminated. See, every container will have its associated file system, right? That file system um, is persisted. Suppose if I want all the files related to stopped containers also to be deleted, what I can do is I can say docker um, rm remove a container, docker rm nginx. Docker rm actually container id. The container id is a big one. We can just give 3 letters, a92. So it is removed. Similarly, I will remove a7a. Again, I will remove the last one is starting with ca7. ca7 docker rm ca7. Okay, so now if I just run docker ps dash a, there is nothing. Even all the stopped containers are also deleted. Fine. Now, what I can do is I can again run one more nginx container using docker run nginx. So I'll not get the terminal back because it is running in the foreground. What I will do is I will actually open one more command prompt and I will SSH into my Ubuntu machine from another terminal. Okay, I'm doing an SSH. Yes. So fine. See, on this left side terminal, nginx is running, and what I'll do is, if I want to stop this container, there are multiple ways. I could press Ctrl C, or from another terminal, docker stop container ID. Okay, first of all, let me get the container ID. Docker PS will give me the container ID. 7872 it is starting with. Then I want to stop it. Docker stop. The container ID is starting with 787. See, I got the terminal back. Okay, so to stop a running container, docker stop is a command. And if I want to start the container again, see here, the container files are not deleted, right? If I say docker ps dash a, it will list this container. If I want to start that container again, what I can do, docker start. The container ID is starting with 787. Let's say 787, it started. Now, um, docker ps, it will show me that same container is again started, right? So you know how to start a container and how to stop a container. So the container starting. So how to again enter into the container? We already know earlier how to enter into a namespace, right? Similarly, how to enter into this container using Docker? Very simple. I can use a command called as docker exec. I want to execute a command and I want to interact with that terminal. I also want my terminal to be attached to the terminal of the container. Hyphen I for interactive mode, and if you want to attach your terminal to the container terminal, T. Then what is the container ID? It is starting with 7872. 7872 space. What command I want to execute? I want to execute bash command. See, I got the bash command. So this is how we can actually enter into the container. This is just like entering into a namespace, whatever we did earlier. Using Docker, we are achieving the same. Okay. Now we understood some basics. I will exit this. I'll exit this. Okay, fine. In my next lecture, we're going to understand few more commands related to Docker, basics of Docker. Once we understand the basics, we'll go to internals and we'll see how to create our own images, etc. See you in next lecture.